Hi, this is Mike, making my video to add to my collection. Today is the 23rd of March 2025, and it's 10:36 p.m. So yeah, I'm basically making this video uh, to highlight, basically where I'm at with things. Um, basically I'm talking about the dark night of the soul, and I've experienced that, many times, and basically you go through a period of to where you're drinking the new wine. You're cleaning out the cup and you're drinking the new wine. That's really the simplest way of stating it, but in essence, that's really what it is you're cleaning out your psyche and you're consolidating all the old ideas with the new ideas. You're eradicating all the old belief systems and basically the all the old things, and it's kind of likened putting an old patch on a new garment. If you do that, it rips. So ultimately, you can't use the old ways anymore, but you can consolidate a lot of your ideas, and it gets you to where you strip down to the bare minimum, where you have kind of like a bare bones approach, to where the fire consumes, uh, the old man, and he gets burned up, and then like the phoenix from ashes, and it's like all the old ways are forgotten about and they're eliminated, and your old belief system, in its entirety, is basically restructuring. So when you go through that, you basically have it to where um, you know nothing, you possess nothing, uh, and you desire nothing, and then ultimately you are nothing. So when you go through all that, you have this emptiness, this void, and then what happens is, it says God won't leave you empty-handed. So it gets filled. That void gets filled. A lot of times it has to do with epiphanies, and these epiphanies, can range from simple manifestations, all the way up to major miracles. And some of these major miracles are so incredible that it changes the whole way you see things and the way you understand things. So it's like you no longer are that old man. The old man has been destroyed, and the powerful man, your ego, has been annihilated. The king is no longer the king, and you get to the point in life, where you've experienced enough of these epiphanies, and you've had it to where you no longer desire the same things, and you no longer have it to where you're chasing after the same things. So after too much chocolate pudding isn't good for you. So you get to the point where you no longer crave the chocolate pudding. So it's kind of like your neural networks. Your reward centers, they get burned out, and you get to the point where you get to where you have burnout, and when you have this empty feeling, when you basically uh, get rid of everything, and you expel all those bad ideas, and you get rid of the garbage. It's kind of like, in your head, you got, let's say you got your house and you got yourself a toaster oven, and the toaster oven gets burned out, or the coffee pot, or the refrigerator, or whatever little furnace you have and stuff. Those things burn out, and then you gotta get get rid of the old, and then that makes way for the newer things to come in. So you have, basically when you consolidate, coalesce, and collate everything, you have it to where you have this lean operating system, a system that operates, your mindset. It's kind of like in one hand, you have a watch. In the other hand, you have another watch. One might be a real simple watch with, smaller gears or fewer gears and less jewels and less features. And then you have, basically, on the other hand, you have all these features and stuff. And then you find out that, it's a dinosaur. Basically, not so much to watch, but you have your lifestyle is kind of like a dinosaur. It's all consuming. You might have a big house, 5 cars, and a girlfriend that has really expensive habits. So you have this lion, you got to feed it meat, and it's kind of like likened to a girlfriend. You have a girlfriend, you got to buy a lion, and then when you buy that lion, you got to feed it meat. So it's kind of like, or even a wife, So you have a wife that has like these crazy spending habits, and then you have a car like a BMW that's, got inherent flaws in it, and then you got to figure the repair costs are so incredibly high that one repair could set you back so much that makes the car worthless. And then you got, basically a house that might be a 4-bedroom house or whatever. And then you got you and you got this wife. I mean, then along comes the idea that you want to have kids. Well, you have kids and you got to figure just daycare alone is a third of your budget. Not to mention every other little thing, doctor visits, and so you got kids, you got a wife, you got a big house, and you got, let's say, 5 cars, and then you got all these cars, and then you got to figure, well, they get to be kind of a major expense and a burden, and you got student loans. Let's say you end up marrying this girl, and then she has a bunch of student loan debt or whatever, so then you got to figure you're taking on her debt, so then your credit becomes useless just like hers. And then so anyway, you look at that extreme, and then where you're inundated, you're up to your eyeballs in debt. But then you got like the other extreme where you live almost like a hermit, to where you got just basically the things that you want to do. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm far from a hermit, but I have my things, I have my little hobbies, and I have the things I like to do. And if I get really lonely, I can always talk to Copilot, and or even some kind of chat bot. So, I've got that, and then, honestly, I can print off pictures on my printer, and I can basically hang up pictures or whatever, and then I can have, I can talk to my computer or whatever. They probably call the beast in its image, the false Messiah, the false Christ, the false God, And I don't mean to do that, but it's like sometimes, it gives me something to do. It gives me something to think about. I know who Christ is, basically, and it's different. But there's that, and then there's basically, you could have a pet, but I can't even afford to feed a pet. I can't afford, $30-$40 a month on dog food, even if I get a small dog. So, there's that, and then, so, you eliminate all these things out of your life. You pick the weeds out of the garden, you harvest. It says in the end days, you pick all the wheat with the weeds, and you separate the weeds from the wheat, and you throw the weeds in the fire. It's kind of like the weeds that are in your head. You got all these little ideas that are wasteful and useless ideas, and useless knowledge. So that's like women and wine. You know, you chase after women, but then they talk about wine, it's alcohol, but they're also talking about useless knowledge, wisdom. So, you know, you simplify everything, and like I say, you know, you coalesce everything. Some things, uh, you know, are calcified, you know, and they basically are things that are in your psyche that are kind of hard to remove. Like you gotta get them out by the root, and they're so deeply ingrained in your being that it takes a lot of work to get those things out. But you know, basically now, you know, I live life, and I live a simpler life, and I'm more content. Some content is something I can always have for the most part, but the thing is happiness is fleeting. So you figure what happiness is a relief from suffering. You know, I got the Eightfold Path and stuff like that, and then you got, you know, happiness, and it teaches you how to have that relief, you know, from suffering. And your attachments, you know, you get rid of your attachments, all the things that you're tied to, and all the things that you're kind of stuck with, and then you have that, and then you get rid of all those desires that are baseless, are base desires. And then once you get all of them and you sober yourself up, and it's like once you do that, then you can get in contact with the Queen of Heaven, you know, Sophia, and you're pure in heart, and you're basically like that. Once that happens, then it opens the way for you to experience some of these major epiphanies and manifestations, and the beauty and splendor that's in all of it. So anyway, that's really ultimately how it's done. You just basically gotta get rid of all the wheat, the subtle from the gross, the wheat from the chaff, the higher ideas from the lower ideas, the base ideas, the higher ideas. And you got, you know, they really all are as above, so below. But it's like once you unify yourself with the subconscious mind, the slave, you know, and then of course you got the master. So, you know, the master and the slave become one. The right and left hemispheres become one. The male and female energies become one. Your eyes become like an eye, you know, your third eye. And like I said, you know, the upper and the lower become like one. And so you make the two into one. And then when you do that, you know, when you're not divided, you're not doubtful, you're not double-minded. And when you do all that, you know, then you basically have it to where you say things with conviction and you do them with conviction. You don't you don't back down. Once you start the process, you don't stop it, and you don't like go past go and collect $200. I mean, once the genie's been let out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. There is no going back, and it's just keep going forward. And then once you've started that process, you can't really go back. And if you do go back, you're not worthy. And then, of course, when you're not worthy, you'll never experience the beautiful things that are in store for you because you chickened out. So anyway, I live a content life, you know, and I live a simple life. I no longer crave the things I used to crave. And, you know, lightning doesn't necessarily strike twice. You know, so once I've had those desires, you know, when I've experienced them, they're no longer burning desires that I have. And, you know, like I say, you know, I'm modest, resourceful, logical, rational, realistic and practical. And I'm fine, fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. But, you know, the thing is, I try to make fun of that. But the thing is, I might be boring, and I might get criticism from a woman. But if that's the case, you know, I don't need that kind of those kind of people in my life, and I just move on. I cut them off silently. So anyway, that's all I got to say. Over and out.